like to invite Professor Anton Muscatelli, the Principal and Vice-Chancellor of the University of Glasgow, to give a short speech about debating and the university life in general. Here.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you all for joining us tonight for what is going to be a thought-provoking and lively, refreshing show debate. Before I just say a few words, I'm really keen to restate that I'm here tonight as a totally neutral observer. So I'm Switzerland as far as you're all concerned. And instead I'm going to leave politicking to our expert commentators and indeed a number of experienced politicians and other commentators here tonight on both sides. And I know that all of our excellent speakers will do a great job, and can I thank them for joining us and giving up their time for being with us here in the historic GU debating chamber. On the proposition benches, we have Graham Smith, author of Abolish the Monarchy and CEO of the Republic campaign, who has appeared on Newsline, Channel 4 News, CNN, countless other media outlets. We have Harvey Olden, who's the current senior trainer at the University of Glasgow. He won the St Andrews Open, so very experienced debater. We have Emma Walker, former Dialectic Society president, and again a very experienced debater and former Scottish champion. And we have Emma Chan, former convener of debates at the GU and our student speaker as well. Emma is a master student of research in economics at Glasgow, and alongside Joseph Hutchison convened the European University Debating Championship last month, bringing 600 participants from over 50 countries across Europe together in Glasgow. On the opposition benches, we are joined with a number of experienced speakers again, including some serving politicians. We have Dr. Sandesh, one of our local Glasgow region MSPs, who's been an excellent supporter of the university during his time in Parliament, and a regular visitor to our campus to meet with students and staff to hear about their work. We have Jeremy Balfour, who represents Olden and has been a passionate advocate for the rights of disabled people through his time in Holyrood. We have Eddie Barnes, who is a colleague here at the University of Glasgow. He's the new director of the John Smith Centre, a political strategist, former director of our Scottish Future, a think tank set up by former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. And finally, Brian Whittle, who's not only in the Institute for the South of Scotland, but we have our Freeze campus in that region, but he's also a decorated Olympian who currently serves as the deputy spokesperson for the Scottish Conservatives on business, economic growth and tourism. So thank you all, thank you for being with us this evening. But particularly thank you, of course, Mr. Speaker, to the Glasgow University Union, the GU, for organising this important annual event on our campus. This GU debating chamber is historic. It's seen many of the great debaters and orators of the past century hone their skills here. Former leaders of the UK's biggest political parties, as well as two First Ministers of Scotland, numerous business, legal, medical, media figures stand amongst the GU's rich alumni heritage. And as I said earlier, just last month, the GU have played host to the European University Debating Championships, which had previously won in 2017 and reached the quarterfinals in the 2022 competition. The GU is no stranger to hosting international competitions of the scale. It hosted the first ever World University Debating Championships in 1981. That time, my good friend Charles Kennedy was here, of course, as a student, roughly the same time as me, so you can date my age from that. And 4 other times since then, most recently in 2001. And the GU style of parliamentary debating is unique to Glasgow, and I hope tonight gives you a flavour of this. And indeed, I'm informed that the GU Debating Club is also fueled by Yaka, the Debates Committee's signature cocktail. So perhaps you'll have a flavour of this as well. To our new students who've joined the university and this year and with us this evening, please do continue to engage with the GU. Come along, participate in our programme of debating, because by doing so, you're going to be part of a long-standing history. You may have engaged in debating before in your school or in your previous university, but each and every one of you will find something very new here at the GU. It allows you to meet new friends. Some will share your own views and political opinions, some won't, but that's the beauty of debating. As the famous American civil rights campaigner and former US Senator and protege what Martin Luther King said, and I quote, "Deliberation and debate is the way you stir the soul of our democracy." And I'm sure our political and journalist colleagues and our students here this evening will agree that it's more important than ever that your generation get involved, get engaged with politics and the most pressing social issues of today. It's your generation that has pushed my generation to do more, whether it's on international issues, on the climate emergency, and many other issues. Your perspectives are valuable, and it's important that you express them. And being part of the GU in this society will help you do that. So please make the most of that opportunity. And to both our new and returning students, I wish the very best for the academic year ahead. Thanks for joining us. Thanks again for your excellent speakers. Thanks again to the GU for inviting me along this evening. Have a great time. Thank you.
Now, the motion before the House is this House would abolish the monarchy. Remember, these are very established speakers and very talented, so do show them respect while they're speaking. If you have a good heckle, share it with the room. I would like to call the first member of government, Graham Smith. Graham Smith is the CEO of the Republic and has organised a campaign for democratic alternatives to the monarchy. His position as an authority on the republicanism has earned him appearances on CNN, Channel 4, amongst others. So I'd like to call this maiden to catch the chamber's eye. Hear, hear.
Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for the invitation to come and speak here this evening. There is no good argument in favour of the monarchy, not one. I've never heard one. I've been campaigning against the monarchy for 20 years, I still haven't heard a good argument or an original argument. So the challenge is there before people on the other side of the table to come up with one that is either good or original. Because this is a corrupt, undemocratic institution that deserves to be cast into the bin of history. And it should be part of our history and only part of our history. It is not an institution that lives up to the standards that we set those in public life. It is not an institution that lives up to the values that most of us believe and cherish. And it is not an institution that gives us heads of state who we can be proud of. It is an institution that is steeped in secrecy, that abuses public money, which makes the political advisors and the Prime Minister look very same when it comes to their expenses and their purchasing pairs of glasses and football. Yep.
You talk about heads of state to be proud of, which heads of state do you prefer to them under? The elected President Trump or the unelected King Charles?
Well, obviously this is absolutely spot on, right off the bat, unoriginal, not a good argument. No one is arguing. No one is arguing for a US-style constitution. I may as well sit here and say, well, we like monarchy. Why not have Saudi Arabia's monarchy? That's the sense that comes from the monarchists. Because what we're arguing for is the parliamentary democracy. I'll come back to that in a moment. But the monarchy fails on a point of principle. Some people say, yes, okay, in principle it's wrong, but there should be no but at the end of that sentence. It is unprincipled. It stands against values such as democracy, equality, the rule of law, and citizenship, and therefore it should be binned. It is corrupt. As an institution, it has been compared unfavourably for its secrecy to CIA and MI5 by academics who are not particularly Republican, but are trying to research the history and the contemporary mechanisms of our head of state, and they cannot get into those official documents because they're protected. They're outside of the Freedom of Information Act. You cannot know what our head of state is doing, what his son is doing. His son will be lobbying, as his father does, for their own interests and for their own political hobby horses, and you have no idea what influence they are having. Anyone else lobbies the government, you can put them in an FOI request and find out. They're also lobbying for their own financial benefit. They are costing us hundreds of millions of pounds a year, not the 100 million pounds they admit to. We have a new report coming out. The public has a new report coming out this week. I won't say what the details of the figures are because it's embargoed until Tuesday, but it is hundreds of millions of pounds. The last report at 345 million pounds. We're at a state where if you look at Ireland, which has a succession of exceptional heads of state, including the current one, Michael D. Higgins, who was elected and then re-elected overwhelmingly by the people of Ireland, who cost the Irish taxpayer €4 million, a large chunk of which goes to people who have turned 100. Our monarch, our head of state, cost us $345 million at least, if not more than that.
How much did you bring in?
And he doesn't bring anything in. Strike two, bad argument. Not original, not a good argument. They do not bring money in. I'll come back onto that. This is an institution which I've just said is corrupt. And all you say, well, what do they bring in? Are we really going to sacrifice our standards in public life because we think we can flog a few t-shirts in London? They said they would bring people into Scotland or Glasgow because no one comes here to Glasgow because we have an old man living in a big house in central London. That does not happen. It is also, and this is one of the most fundamental points, it is bad for our democracy. It's fundamentally bad for our democracy because it puts way too much power in the hands of the Parliament. The Crown is the source of all political and legal power in this country. The Crown can be used only by the government, and the monarchy, the institution with the king and the princes and all the trappings, that is used to serve two groups of people. Firstly, those in power to protect the Crown, and the power gives the government, and secondly, to protect and serve the interests of the royal family, who do not do anything to deserve that extraordinary privileged position. And if you look at, we hear every year, look at how many hundreds of engagements they do. If you add those up, it adds up to just a few weeks of full-time work equivalent.
Oh, just a point of information. I know you haven't answered the question about Charles. You mentioned that the Crown is there, the monarchy is there to support the government. That's incorrect. It's there to serve Parliament. Is that not correct? Parliament is something, correct?
Our Parliament is largely controlled with a significant amount of help from the Crown, its powers that it granted to government by government. So in this country, this is a pretty straightforward observation. Parliament, if the government has an acquiescent backbench, then which they usually have, there'll be lots of hot air and lots of rebellions. But if it has an acquiescent backbench, it will do what government tells it. And that is the nature of our constitution. Is that there is very little in the way of checks and balances in this country. That if the Prime Minister wishes something to happen, it will happen. And all the hot air in opposition, all the chatter in the Lords, all the votes in the Lords that might defeat the government, it comes to now if the government is determined to have their way. And that is a result of the fact that we've stumbled in this confused way from our monarchical history into this situation where we have still the Crown and a head of state who does nothing and it offers no checks and balances. Now the alternative, as I said, the choice is not between Trump or Charles. And if you seriously think, and this is part of the problem with the monarchy sides, they talk about patriotism, but what they're really doing is insulting all of you. Because the being a republic isn't about really Charles or Trump or anybody else apart from you. It's about your rights as citizens, not only to choose that head of state, to be that head of state. And we are a country of 65 million people. And the argument from the other side is that if we have a choice, the only possible person we can find is someone like Trump. Really? Is that their argument? Are they really saying the best person we can possibly find for this country is Charles? Really? Because last year, or 3 years ago, they were saying the best possible person we can find for head of state was the Queen. And then extraordinarily, by amazing coincidence, when she died, the very best person we can possibly find just happens to be her eldest son. Not her youngest son, not the next son, obviously. When Charles dies, by an extraordinary coincidence, the very best person we can find will be his son. What an amazing coincidence. And not his youngest son, it just happens to be his eldest son. Well, why can't you choose yourself? Are you that stupid that you can't choose? Because that's what they're like. Is there no one in this sport I can be your head of state? Because they do it in Ireland with a population of 5 million. They do it in Iceland with a population of less than 500,000. And they have some amazing heads of state. Victor Stinbocketer was the first woman ever elected in the world to the position of head of state. She carried on winning elections. She served for 16 years as head of state of Ireland. And they have acceptable heads of state still. Ireland does it, Germany does it, Finland does it, Austria does it. There are countries all over Europe and elsewhere in the world that have parliamentary systems, not US or French style systems, not heads of state or also heads of government, but parliaments with prime ministers, with parliament, with a parliament opposition, and with heads of state who are there to do three things: represent the nation's ambassadors, to be a check and balance on the power to guard the constitution to make sure the prime minister and parliaments can't do whatever they want, and he will only do what he's told by the prime minister, and to manage the system when there is a political crisis. I am slightly ignoring the bell because the royals always ignore the law and the rules that set by everyone else. Break the law. Who can avoid tax and you demand secrecy and spend £345 million a year, and I will be very happy to ignore a bell for 2 minutes. Thank you.
I would like to call the first member of opposition, Sandesh. Gulhane is a doctor and a Conservative politician elected to the Scottish Parliament in 2001. This is the first Hindu of Indian descent to be an MSP, and soon after being elected, was appointed Shadow Cabinet for Security Secretary for Health and Social Care. I would like to call the maiden to clap my arm. Here.
Honourable and right honourable members of the House, distinguished strangers in the gallery, not a single new or original argument to abolish the monarchy from the past speaker, but it seems he prefers to have Trump, Bush or Farage, and quite simply doesn't feel rules apply to him either. Yes.
What do you not like about Trump? The fact he hates immigrants? The fact he hates people that are from anywhere other than the country he's in? That sounds a bit like the royal family to me.
So you think that King Charles hates immigrants?
Yes.
A man who is proud of the Commonwealth, a man who goes and visits multiple people across the world to talk to them, and who is warmly, fondly met. In fact, we just look at New Zealand and look at how the New Zealand women's rugby team hugged him. So that's clearly a man who hates immigrants. Or the man I met, clearly he hated me when I spoke to him. When my parents first came to Britain, they travelled halfway around the world from India, and it was a vastly different land they came to. But as Commonwealth citizens, they were able to travel and settle here in the UK. Amid the chaos of the late 20th century, much was uncertain. Old powers had faded, new nations and allegiances had emerged, and people were on the move. Curiously, however, there was one thing that remained unbowed by these seismic convulsions. And oddly enough, it was perhaps the most oldest of institutions. The direct line descending over 1,200 years, the crown represented everything that had been achieved in the illustrious, but not unblemished, history of our nation.
Like slavery.
The sins of slavery or imperialism were abhorrent, and they should not be addressed or shied away from. Yet this nation was also the first to enforce an end to slavery, and in an age where imperial conquest was the norm, exported the ideas of parliamentary democracy, personal liberty, and the rule of law around the world.
Are you aware that in the late 60s, early 70s, when our Parliament was passing legislation to outlaw racial discrimination in the workplace, the Queen wrote to the Prime Minister and said it is not our practice to employ black and coloured people from the Commonwealth. It was a deliberate attempt to exclude themselves from racial discrimination legislation. Are you aware of that, and would you condemn it right now?
We will not ever accept racial discrimination in our country, and we will never do so right now. If we look back in history and back in time, attitudes were different. And we have to accept attitude difference, but that doesn't mean we have to accept that today. Inheriting a tradition over a millennia old and steeped in legend, in 1953, it fell to the late Queen Elizabeth II to lead the nation and Commonwealth. And she was the living embodiment of past ages of the realm. The Queen understood as well as anyone that such an office was highly respected, but bore an immense duty. And I doubt that there are many of us who could truthfully claim to shoulder the weight of a nation from dawn till dusk. Working well into her 90s, the Queen was recognised by Prime Ministers of all persuasions as the epitome of service and duty. Gordon Brown said he was embarrassed by her knowledge of current affairs, and John Major described her as selfless and wise, and such qualities are all too scarce in our current political culture.
If this is such a large burden to be prepared, then we should not assign it by the random lottery of birth.
And we could have Donald Trump for 4 years or Nigel Farage here. In contrast, what many of you will hear when we talk about Donald Trump
No one in the room
is the fact, you had your 15 minutes to talk, I think you should be quiet now. The French are on their 5th Republic and 14th Constitution since 1789, and Americans enjoy the nuanced and reflective meditations of Donald Trump, a man who is the head of state.
What?
We in Britain dislike. Let's see the next election, shall we? Mr. Trump, what did Mr. Trump say? Mr. Trump suggested that we inject bleach to get rid of COVID. A head of state saying that we should do that.
Charles is in
If
favour
we
of
look
coffee
at America, we can see their monarchy is a constitution written in 1791. What is the problem with that? The fact that the amendment about controlling guns cannot be changed because of the fact that it's been enslaved into America, and that is something that they will never be able to get rid of. And a Sandy Hook can only happen in a country like America because they have a constitution they are unwilling to look at, unwilling to change. You have had 25 minutes, sit down and be quiet. We need to be heard. You know what? When we are in a debate, we are in a respectful debate where we hear each other and speak. And when you speak for far too long, when you speak for 25 minutes, maybe it is time that you sit down and listen to the arguments, because then you will hear original arguments and you will hear things that you don't want to hear. If we look around the world, according to the Fragile States Index, 3 of the top 5 most stable countries are constitutional monarchies, and yet the least 5 stable states are republics. I think it's very clear when we look at battles across our country, Waterloo, the Somme, Normandy, the knowledge that they fought for, and accumulated history that's been with our soldiers. Somehow for me, the phrase, for king and country, has far more of a ring to it than for Keir Starmer and country. And what is it that we do instead of have a monarchy? Well, let's see if we can get even more politicians. Is that what you want? More politicians? Because, quite frankly, that is a politician's wet dream. I'm a GP, so it's not mine. The responsibility to lead and govern is something we need to take very seriously. The Queen, when she died, we saw the outpouring of love. We saw the outpouring of grief that happened here in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, across all nations, across our United Kingdom, and across the Commonwealth. I will leave you with one last thing. God save the King.
Harvey Olden, or the Honourable On Guard, is our current senior trainer. Over his time at university, he's backed up many speaking achievements. He was the top speaker in Imperial Ivy, has won both St Andrews Open as well as one of the other major Scottish champions, and has also broken to the semi-finals of Pro World. I'd like to call On Guard. Here.
Deputy Speaker, Honourable Members of the House, and distinguished strangers in the gallery. I pose to you the question: do you sincerely believe that the royals are of superhuman virtue? If I had to wager, I would say most of you do not. In fact, I would hope none of you do. If without this premise, the ludicrous and antiquated institution of the monarchy makes no sense at all. The doctrine of sovereign immunity means that in his capacity as King Charles is immune from all prosecution. In addition, numerous laws stacked in favour of the royals mean that police cannot enter their estates. Even, God knows why, if you have some kind of personal affection towards King Charles, even if you have immense trust in him, can you trust his son? Can you trust his grandson? Sure, heads of state can be banned, they can be tried, but then we remove them, as he was removed. Suppose, however, we have a Trump born into the monarchy. Suppose they abuse the limits of the legal power which they bestowed to erode our democracy, to infringe upon the autonomy of others around them. Later, there is nothing but if it does. Give me a second, please. Look, there is nothing, give me a second. Look, there is nothing guaranteed that this cannot happen. And if they are born into the monarchy, there is no easy way to prove it. I think this is a fundamental affront to human dignity. To think that by mere right of birth, someone has the right to intrude upon our personal autonomy is a ridiculous belief to hold. We all bleed the same. We all feel hunger and pangs of pain when we are cold. Yet, substantially, we overprivilege the royals. We only grant them these rights. As has been said, 300 million is spent on them. Yet, however, even if this is not massive in the scale of the government, if one family can live in opulence, then thousands of them can be fed. And when we deny them this fundamental dignity, simply so that the royals can live in opulence, we deny the humanity of these people. When we allow the royals to have special privileges that let people like Prince Andrew abuse their position of power and manipulate around us, we deny the dignity, the humanity of the people around us by especially privileging one group of people simply on the basis of birth. We will be told by, I'll take it now.
Well, I've got to really problem to me. But I am practically if this institution is so unpopular, why are so many countries across the world joining the Convenor and have a king and sovereign? If that is so unpopular, why is it
Well, that's not how the Commonwealth.
No. First of all, not many nations have joined the Commonwealth recently. Second of all,
15 countries.
okay, Simon Cowell is really popular. I don't think we should have to kill him without being. And therefore no one should be granted special exception or privilege simply by basis of being born into the right family. Look, we might be told that the monarchy is important to our traditions or identity, but let's consider this. If you tell us that God save the King has helped us march into battle, you can't have it both ways. It has also sent us into India. It has sent us into exploitations of many of the poorest across the world. The desperate poverty of millions that still live in our country. I do not think that this is an identity we should hold. I do not think this is a tradition we should preserve. Maybe many people care about the monarchy, but I think this is a deep and substantial rot within our nation which we should address and overcome. I substantially do not think that simply because something is traditional it is good. Simply because they value it, it is good. Across the time, many horrific practices will be popular, and I think this is something we can move beyond as a nation. I will take a point of information.
I think a lot of people public service is important.
Yes.
You believe, you don't accept that many members of the monarchy, the Queen, and others represent the body that sets public service. Isn't that important that we keep that in mind?
Okay.
Without any sense of,
We're not the only country in the world with a civil service. In fact, most countries are not monarchies, and they seem to have perfectly functional governments. Britain might be better off than the US, but we're broadly a less functional country than the rest of the G7. And probably part of it is because we have so much stupid overhead and no formal legal process by which to actually conduct our affairs. Then, with the sort of blatant injustice that the monarchy presents, the only question is, how the hell do we get rid of it? Well, I have good news. It really is not that difficult, and not as difficult as would be presented. Thousands of hundreds of nations have done it, and in recent history, more severe transitions have happened, like Czechia moving from an authoritarian communist state to a relatively prosperous democracy. I see no reason why the UK is incapable of this. But even if it's hard, I do not think this is a bad thing. Members of the gallery, I ask you this: who here is satisfied with how our nation functions right now? Who here has genuine hope for the future? Please, raise your hands. Okay, one chap. I'm really happy for you guys. I think most of us feel fundamentally alienated by our society. We feel our nation is not making the steps it needs to. So perhaps it is time again that we start challenging ourselves, that we start doing the hard things like we did in the past when we were looking at NHS. Maybe it is time then when we take down the monarchy and tear down the rotten facade which hides a monument to injustice beneath it. Yes, it will be difficult, but once we have launched monarchy, we must then consider how we will build an institution, how we construct the head of state. We will probably see other institutions like the House of Lords as ones which are inadequate and antiquated and have to get rid of them. But I think this is a fundamental revitalization that our nation needs if we want to build a genuine society. Look, I cannot claim that abolishing the monarchy will solve everything. Anyone trying to tell you that there is a simple solution to our nation's problems is probably selling you snake oil. But the road to freedom, the road to equality, is a long one. And as long as an institution stands, which necessarily enfranchises the power of a few simply by basis of their birth over others, an institution which is dependent fundamentally on equality, as long as it stands, as long as it is demolished, it is a path we can never take.
And I would like to call on the second member of opposition. Jeremy Balfour is a Conservative politician, solicitor, and Baptist minister. He was first elected in Scottish Parliament in 2016 to represent Gulhane. After being elected, Balfour became Scottish Conservative spokesman for childcare and in early years and joined the Equality Opportunities Committee. I would like to call this maiden to catch my eye. Here.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. It's a great pleasure to be here in this company and on this side of the House. It's great to be part of this debate society with all its rich history. I think this is a really important motion that is before us this evening. Unfortunately, the other side don't want to engage in the debate. They simply want to give you false information. There are many things that they feel proud to be Scottish and British. The part that we played in the abolition of the slave trade, our proud history of the birthplace of many of the liberal freedoms and rights that we enjoy today, and of course our system of government that has served as examples to other parliaments around the world. And at the heart of that system, Deputy Speaker, sits the crown. The monarchy is the institution that is older than the United Kingdom itself. It has stood the test of time through war, civil unrest, through plagues, through COVID. It is still here and is in fact stronger today than it has ever been. However, those on the other side of the House would tear out without a second thought on the basis that on their surface level analysis they cannot see a valid reason for it to endure. Absolutely.
Why can I not be Queen? What makes King Charles more qualified than me to lead this country?
Well, I think the question back to that is, before you say why should I not be Queen, or why should I not be King, is what power do you want to give yourself in that role, and what role do you want to play in looking after us? But we have seen this lack of argument so far. The proposition this evening is to take heed of a lesson of Chesterton's French, which is of course asks us to fully understand an institution's purpose before tearing it down. Just because at first we do not see the benefit, it does not mean it's not there. I exposed crude, and this was never picked up by the first speaker when he said in his 20-minute talk. The practical argument can be for the royal family bringing a spectacular amount of revenue to the UK each year. Brand Finance estimated that they bring in nearly £2 billion to the UK economy, a figure that dwarfs the estimate of what the monarchy costs the taxpayer.
Brand Finance is not a serious report. It's barely a report at all. It's a press release. They provide not one source, not one piece of evidence, and it has been debunked. There is actually nothing to support any financial claims about the benefit of the monarchy. Nothing. I've sat down and visited with this chair and CEO and admitted there's no evidence of tourism benefit, and I have seen no evidence to support any claim that Brand Finance figures stack up. None.
I would ask the honourable gentleman to come and come to the Royal Mile day in, day out, where we sit and see the hundreds, thousands, Chinese, Americans go sit down. No, coming down to visit Olden Palace, good honour. But I believe that the case for the Crown can only be made, can be made far more than simply financial. The benefits of having a neutral, non-political head of state are being cast into sharp relief these days, especially when we cast our eyes across the world. It is a presidential system. It is far too easy to get caught up in the cult of personality, believing that if we only elect a politician, or that only if we put that person in place, everything will be better.
Yeah, we're not all want buildings. No, we want to also be there. If people want to visit them, they can.
But the point is, we come to visit them because they are head of state. We don't come to visit them because of who they are, and what they do. It is clear that the presidential model does not work. And as I said previously, many countries over my lifetime have chosen not to.
Really welcome them. No one here is proposing the presidential model. We can agree on that. We want parliamentary.
Well, come say one.
Someone's having a wet dream over there.
More countries are joining the Commonwealth, wanted the monarchy to be the head of state than there was in my lifetime. The issue is that we do have a democratic elected system. We went to the polls back in July, and the government was voted. That government will now vote forward its policy. So we do have a parliamentary. I would be interested in Speaker Fred Book to get off her phone and actually listen to the debate rather than texting. Perhaps she could answer her debate. Can she tell me what powers would you give this person? What powers would you give this individual? What power will they have? There will be far more than they have at the moment. I want to close, Deputy Speaker, with a final point that can be best summed up in the words of C.S. Lewis. Where men are forbidden to honour a king, they honour millionaires, athletes, or film stars, instead of even famous prostitutes or gangsters. The spiritual nature, like bloody nature, will be served generic food, and therefore will be a global poison. We are humans. We seem to have the need to have authority and mystery, which is the modern monarchy satisfied in the most beguiling way possible. If it was removed, we will find something or someone else to put in its place, whether they are working with it or not. This is an observation of human nature, one of which proved true down the millennium and remains true today. And on that basis, what I believe wholeheartedly is that the monarchy is not only an institution that should endure, but it's an institution that should be celebrated. God save the King.
And I'd like to call the next speaker from government. Emma Walker, or White Honourable Goldilocks, is a former dialected president, also former Scottish champion and as well led Scottish, so the independent socialists to a victory in our parliamentary system. She is also panel the European University Debating Championships Grand Final, as well as other amazing judging achievements. In her first year of debating, she was also able to go to an outbound and the University World Debating Championship also as a judge. I'd like to call them up Uncle Goldilocks to speak. Here.
Deputy Speaker, Honourable and Right Honourable Members of the House, distinguished strangers and gallery. I would like you to know the hypocrisy which has already happened within the opposition bench. The hypocrisy that I predicted in the notes in a pre-written speech I had, and I had to make none of it. So let me tell you that we are being unoriginal. Consider that I predicted every single argument they came with. The one original thing they came up with was priding Britain on ending the slave trade. We started it. Our economies come from the slave trade. The ports of Glasgow have benefited. The ports of Manchester and Liverpool and Bristol only thrive because we robbed families of their children. So it is an insane and frankly impossible argument to make that, we stood behind it, we stood against it. I'm so proud that after multiple years, we decided that maybe people that didn't come from the same country as us deserve the same amount of respect as we do. If that is the Britain you are proud of, I do not want to be a part of that same Britain. If that is the Britain use that as a point of view to reckon with the origins of it. This is what we do in debating. We attack baseless points that you make because they sound nice, even though they make no sense behind you. Go on.
The way you understand that slavery was invented long before we were involved. We don't know what
No, we're not. Like every history lesson, the government, this was mandated by the Scottish government. They taught me the issues with slavery. Britain paid for ships. They sent ships over to If you cannot understand that, I cannot have a reasonable debate with you. They will tell you that we need the civil service when they come from many of the parties that decimated our civil services within the UK. I will not stand there and tell you about the future of the UK when they're the ones who have ruined it for me. I see no future for myself because our economy is dying. I see no future for ourselves because we have a monarchy at the head of it, and no one will listen to our generation when we tell you we don't want them. How many people under the age of 25 want the monarchy to continue existing? How many people believe that the monarchy represents them? I have so little in common with King Charles that I don't understand why he should be my leader. Why shouldn't it be me? Why shouldn't I be queen? What makes him so? Walking off with his mansplaining. He wasn't Scottish debating champion. He has nothing that I cannot do. None of it makes any sense if you actually think about it. And then he will tell you, practically tourism helps the UK. The UK is actually doing quite well for tourism. They say, you need to stand on the Royal Mile. The Fringe does not have royals at it. Edinburgh has never been busier than during the Fringe. We do not need the royals to bring in people for that. They then say, but people come to see them. Turn Buckingham Palace into the biggest spoons in the country.
What powers do you give, and what powers do you want as my president of this country? What powers do you have that you can give yourself?
I would love to earn money from doing very little during the year. I will happily work
will you be president? What power will you give them?
Why do we need to be president? We have a prime minister. The prime minister, the ones that we elected. You asked us, Trump or the Queen. I say, I would rather have Trump because at the very, very least he was elected. Everything you hate about Trump, the monarchy also stands for it. Your dislike stirs up issues from the past in the country and starts up the darker parts of America. What do our colonialists royalists do? You don't like that he supports people that only necessarily look like him. What does our monarchy do? What is the thing that you hate about him that you will not also acknowledge exists within the monarchy? This isn't an old thing. They're not distant from allegations of racism. Literally, it's happened in the last few years. I'm sure Graham's a much better expert than me and he has schooled you on all of it. But it is not looking far in the past. It is recent and still happening. We need to stand behind those institutions. It's immoral and wrong. We need to take a long, hard look in the mirror if that is the country we wish to live in, the country that we wish to continue existing within. I will take you.
Okay. My question is this: you said you just there, you didn't believe there should be. Just how many prime ministers? You believe in the untrammeled power of one person in Parliament. So that's what we know. No checks about.
Are you not politicians? Do you not understand what government works? It's not necessarily just one person at the head of it. Would you like us to have one person in power that has absolute authority? Because that's the world family. If you don't want it, I want a democratic system. Just stop for a second. Listen to me. Listen to me. Solid facts about the ways in which this country works, and you have decided to sit there and laugh at me around it. If that is your attitude towards young people, if that is your attitude towards people who decide that they no longer want the system that is happening in place, then that is your prerogative. But you will never win this debate if you just refuse to engage with us. We have been charitable. We have tried to engage with you, and we have responded to the challenges that you have set up. You have not come up with responses. You have given us the same tired arguments about tourism. You have defended a country that has enforced slavery, that has allowed it to continue happening for years and years. You have told us many things that the UK would not be itself out, but all of these things can exist without a monarchy. Britain is still Britain, and to Britain I think credit all if the monarchy does not stand unfairly at the head of it. For all of those reasons, it is so clear the proposition bet is winning this debate.
Eddie Barnes. Eddie Barnes is a accomplished journalist, political advisor, and former senior aide and speechwriter for Group Davidson. He has advised UK Prime Ministers on how to reform the government in the wake of the 2014 Scottish independence referendum. I would like to call debate and pat my eye. Here.
Members of the House, distinguished strangers of the gallery, it's an absolute pleasure to be here this evening to argue against the abolition of the monarchy. I believe my colleagues already have spoken eloquently and very persuasively about the reasons why we should be supporting the monarchy, not just in the past but in the future. And we have heard, I think, powerfully this evening about the example of the late Queen Elizabeth, somebody who I believe commands and is shown to command enormous respect right across the barrier, whether you are a Republican or a monarchist. Somebody who exemplified public service in this country, who demonstrated what it is to put yourself, put the country before yourself. And I think that is absolutely unanimous across this room. And I believe King Charles and her son, who is now our king, is very much following in her footsteps. However, my central point this evening is not based on individuals. We can sit here and argue about Queen Elizabeth being a wonderful person, King Charles being a wonderful person. We could even talk about Prince Andrew, who, let's face it, is probably not going to help my side of the argument in the way that he has behaved disgracefully over these last few years. Well, there are many people who've behaved badly, and I'm afraid to say the way that you described King Charles before is somebody that hated all slight immigrants was a disgrace, because that is not the way that he has behaved over his entire
Are you aware that Charles has been accused of racist behaviour by someone he has met? In Manchester, he laughed, said, "You don't look like he had walked off laughing at himself." This Charles is a rude man, and he is an objectionable man, and he is accused of corruption, receiving millions of euros in cash from Qatari business people who was linked to Al-Qaeda, accused of selling orange cash. The idea that this is about public service, and we should all agree that Charles is a wonderful person in the footsteps of his mother, is absurd, and that is offensive.
My daughter's like you, he's a flawed human being. But I believe Charles's record stands on its own. My children, I think, look at Charles and say, this is a man who was speaking about the environment long before anybody else. He was talking about the key issue. Anyway, like I said, my argument is not about the individuals. It is about the institution of the monarchy, and the importance the institution of the monarchy has in the thing I find important in this country, which is our democracy, and about parliamentary sovereignty, and the role that our monarchy plays in upholding that, which I will explain. Now, the point, yes.
This is already the level of democracy, the monarchy protecting democracy. Look, you just have a head of state with relatively minimal power. You don't want I don't know why we'll get Trump. They've already got Trump because it's fundamentally different political circumstances, not because they don't know what.
Allow me to explain. Now, you are in favour of an individual. You want a democratically elected individual to replace a monarch. That is, I believe, the position of most Republicans. Now, it may not be Nigel Farage. I mean, let's hope it isn't. It may not be Liz Truss. It may not, I don't know, it could be Anton Deck. Who knows? It could be all these things together. You know, who knows who it is? But let's just imagine it is a retired politician of some description. Now, let's imagine, as has happened quite recently, that we have a hung parliament, and there is no one government that is obvious to be elected. Now, what happens? Well, I've read the website, and it tells us if we have a hung parliament where no party has enough MPs to form a government, then the president would preside over the process of deciding who should become Prime Minister. So this president, I know, could be Nigel Farage, for all I know, could be Liz Truss. What could possibly go wrong? We had a fantastic process when we had a hung parliament. Now, I've taken interventions. We had a fantastic process when we had a hung parliament in 2010. My former boss, Gilbert, was Prime Minister, where, thanks to the fact that nobody wanted to put the monarch in a difficult position, they came to an agreement and power was transferred. Now imagine if that process, you had a hung parliament, we had a Nigel Farage, or a Liz Truss, or indeed somebody from the Labour Party as president. Are you going to be trusting and faithful in thinking that that's going to be a decent process? I don't think so. But that is what happens when you put an individual in that place and not an institution. Yes?
What's the legal guarantee that the king will act in better? It's simple blood that we have so far.
Well, I just go away.
You are advertising being on this side, so I assume you don't actually believe what you're saying right now. But the point is that
We all just stand up and speak whatever we want. Is that okay?
Now, your argument, James, I believe it's important to change, not just from something, you may disagree with me, but change to. And I believe that's where the Republican Court is still lacking. Now, haven't we learned these lessons over the last few years? Remember the cry in 2016, leave the EU, abolish our membership. That will mean freedom, sovereignty, control. And then Britain wakes up the following morning, and after decided to go and goes, oh shit, what happens next? And the same thing will happen if we leave the monarchy and end up. So yes, I can understand why people might feel frustrated with the monarchy. I can see why, maybe because you don't like Meghan or Prince Andrew, because you're not members of the Lucky Sperm Club. But the question facing you this evening is not whether the monarchy is perfect, but whether something else would be better. And I go back to my original point about institutions. We have in the monarchy a backstop against dictatorship. the ultimate politician of last resort. But we have a monarchy that has learned over centuries that politics is for Parliament. Advice and counsel, yes, but not politics. That is for Parliament. What we need in this country is more stronger institutions. Political parties, trade unions, full churches, good clubs, university unions, strong local government, and yes, great, strong monarchy at the centre of it, a constitutional monarchy providing the stability, the continuity, and the neutrality that we need at the centre. Don't risk President Farage. It's the oldest lesson in the book. Be careful what you wish for. Oppose the proposition.
I'd like to call on Emma Chan, also the White House Pegasus. Emma is in their final week of their masters and decided to come here to give a speech. They were previously the debates convener as well as the European University Debating Championships in 2014, right in Glasgow. They have also made it to the quarterfinals of both the European and World Debating Championship. Emma was also a party leader of the His Majesty's Royal Tory Club and won that year. I'd like to call the White House Pegasus for that speech. Take care.
Honourable and Right Honourable members of the Chamber, distinguished freshers in the gallery, and Deputy Chair. I'm going to bring two main points. First of all, that the British identity's over-reliance on the royal family diminishes our recognition of our other achievements. And secondly, that the monarchy is a symbol of class and racial oppression. As said, I have a dissertation due on Monday, but here I am. So, like any stressed, overworked student, I did the sensible thing and asked ChatGPT. I asked ChatGPT, what are some iconic parts of British culture which are famous across the globe? He said, first of all, afternoon tea, which was stolen from China and India. Second of all, sure. And then third of all, the Queen, which is ironic because she's dead. And the point is that I think it's quite tragic that a country as great as we are is known for having an old white person at the helm of it. That is what is iconic about it. And it's just absolutely luck who we get. We might get a psychopath or someone who doesn't join the company of Jeffrey Epstein, which brings our whole country. We've heard ideas and hints at the idea that the monarchy is a good part of the British identity, that makes us this proud reason to be British, and it brings us all together. However, this just seems ridiculous in the United Kingdom, which has so many more impressive and entertaining industries where we are world leaders. First of all, like music, there's only 7 artists in the world that have sold over 250 million records, and 4 of them are British. The BBC, Top Gear, Doctor Who, God, that makes me proud to be British, not King Charles. 3, then has the most cited medical papers in the world, only after the US. AstraZeneca, the vaccine that was developed here in the UK, has produced 2 billion vaccines against COVID-19. But you don't hear about this as much because whenever anything happens to the royal family, it's the front page of our tabloids or it's headline news. What do they think about it? Oh, King Charles congratulated some Paralympians or some Olympians or some other people for winning. Who cares what King Charles said? I can just be happy for them because they did a good job. Observed that it is human nature to want to idolize or have some authority above you. They said, who else would it be? It would be someone else. I disagree. King Charles was born into this position. If you idolize David Attenborough, Mary Berry, or Mo Farah, or Stormzy, or Sue Perkins, that's great. They've all done something that is worth merit and worth that achievement and therefore to be idolized. I think, to be fair to them, maybe the monarchy at some point in Britain's history has done some good for the nation. But just because it's done good in the past doesn't mean we need it going into the future to continue doing good things. We have so many powerful industries here. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sure you have been ageist and you have been racist, but pretty much two comments aside, Can I have a question? I am deeply confused by what you're saying compared to what the other people say. Do you want a president, or do you want the power to simply lie with one prime minister? What do you want? You want it for president?
Okay, there are several different alternatives and different types of republics. For example, France doesn't have the exact same system as
What do you want?
It doesn't matter. I just don't want the monarchy. I don't really care that much. Also, I don't think I've really been ageist, but even if they are old, like, you know, I just think someone having like complete mental capacity is probably useful if they are going to rule a country. On national pride, I think along the bench we have heard that the British or the royal family is able to impose rule of law and ideals of civilized cultures and things like this. I think rule of law was imposed in a lot of our colonies because it legitimized police brutality. So when people practice the culture that we deemed uncivilized, we can put them in jail and lock them up. I think that when the leader of the opposition mentioned that King Charles isn't a racist because he loves visiting the Commonwealth, I mean, I would also love to travel the globe for free or on taxpayer dollars. The Commonwealth is to say sorry. We colonized you. Sorry we pillaged your towns and stole your children. The Commonwealth countries, he is going to say, we are sorry about our past atrocities. What is a better story than, instead of him going, I apologize, then abdicating and not having a monarchy, saying that the institution that did this no longer exists, so we can never do it to you again. Yes,
Sorry to interrupt, but when you're arguing for change, you don't believe you have to, but you have to prove not just that you have to change constantly, but lay out a proposition. You're
Okay,
saying
yes,
the whole thing.
I want the France model. Thank you. Sure, why not? Do you know why?
Okay.
Here's the as well. This is a class of debate about democracy. Frankly, I would rather have Trump rule over me than King Charles. And do you know why? It's because people vote in the leader they deserve. If that is what the people want, we should have the right to rule as we do. Luckily, though, we don't have Trump in this country, so it's not really an issue. Queen Victoria personally lobbied and encouraged the growth of the British Empire. The jewels and the crown were literally stolen from there. It was the British flag that represented the King's army that flew over my grandparents' city of Penang. They lived under colonization. They experienced the oppression at the hands of the British. It was also the King's army that abandoned my grandparents when the Japanese invaded them. Because the reality of the Commonwealth is that it exists, so the monarchy can exploit the resources, but when the going gets tough and the colony's use has been depleted, they abandon you. And then finally, something on class. There's a weird thing in the United Kingdom, where obviously we have wealth inequality, like all countries in the world, but we have something extra. We have class inequality. So even if any of us here were to become a millionaire by winning the lottery, none of us would be upper class, you know? Because you don't have the right accent, you don't, ride a horse or use the right spoon during supper. And this is what the Queen and the King and the monarchy embodies. It embodies this idea that just because you are born into the right family, you are better than everyone else. This is the value that racism, sexism, and all forms of bigotry have ingrained in them. And for all these reasons, viva the Republic!
Conservative politician and former athlete. In 1986 and 1994, won the gold medal in the 400 meter relay in the European Athletic Championship. Following this, he became an MSP for the South Scotland region in 2016. I would like to call upon this maiden to catch my eye. Here.
Deputy Speaker, Honourable and Right Honourable members of the House, distinguished students in the gallery, it is a pleasure to close this congratulations to all the speakers in this debate. It has been raucous, it has been delightful, and it's a bit of a change from the Parliament. The British monarchy is a tough old institution. Never underestimate the difficulty in removing it. It dates back to 1603 with the Union of the Crowns of Scotland and England, but before that it was mostly the English monarchy, which obviously is not that important, so let's not go there. But then a Scottish king became the British monarch and of course moved to London, capital of England. Go on. This earlier,
Yeah, he's actually my great grandfather. I've chatted to you one. I still don't think I should have people in unity.
We'll speak to him, and there, through revolutions, through executions, through Princess Diana, Netflix dramas, autobiographies by Spear, they have remained. This is far from the first time the question of the monarchy has been placed in this debate. I was in this chamber 42 years ago, doing exactly the same thing. Indeed, perhaps the single best argument against abolishing the monarchy is that it would leave university debating societies, the length of the country, scrambling for another topic to debate when they can't come up with anything else. Then, of course, a reason why it is such a very topic of debate. The monarchy is constant. It is always there. It is unchanging. It sits immovable among the ebb and flow of political tides, media coverage, and public opinion. Certainly, its popularity changes over time, and there will always be those on either side who are intractable in their views that the crown must either be preserved or wiped out. It's been 40 years, for example, since Tom Mayer wrote the famous critique of the monarchy, The Enchanting Class. Chapter names are things like Are We All Mad? The mystic significance of a small ball patch, and the society of brawling. Probably give you an insight into his perspective. But the monarchy still stands. Abolishing the monarchy, whatever the feelings of this House, has been an unfashionable topic in recent times. Many who have been abolishers with the principle didn't actually want to abolish the Queen. Such was her scheme at the late Queen Elizabeth II was held. And now the question is back, ladies and gentlemen. I submit the abolition would be a fundamental error, an act of self-harm to rival accepting the Trojan horse or filling the Hindenburg with hydrogen and Petersburg.
I'm sure people in the 1800s also said Slippers is supposed to have the right benefit. You wish that hadn't been overturned? You wish that hadn't stopped?
Interestingly enough, it was us who overturned it. And that is the point. Firstly, it seems to me the country requires a figurehead, some central figure around whom people can gather, whether respectfully, like us Brits, or in order to hurl abuse at each other, like we do in the US, or because not doing so is simply a bad idea, like China. The British monarch is that figure for us, who has traditions and presence and is ready to national proceedings. You may know that supporters of the Scottish independence are by no means all Republicans, and the 2014 referendum debate of such fond memory was not dominated by the prospect of the abolition. There are those who would argue that an elected head of state and president, however, would be somewhat more democratic, an opportunity to give the people the right to choose who represents them, and that is true. It would be more democratic. However, would it be better? It would make our head of state a political figure, because even if you started from the premise that our president can't be a current or former politician, which would rule out the likes of Tony Blair, Boris Johnson, or Jeremy Corbyn, you can't be sure that politics will be its head. Political parties will put forward candidates, even if non-politicians stood to one as an independent, whether it's Stephen Fry or Gary Lineker or Harvey, what's his name, XCEX, which I understand from my grandchildren is some kind of musician. They all have the political views, and plenty of people will disagree with them. Taking a vow of neutrality once in office won't solve the problem either. How many of us would trust someone who, with a different political view, to be truly impartial after he spent a lifetime expressing them publicly, sir?
Are you aware that Charles has lots of political opinions, he spent a lifetime expressing those political opinions? You are mistaking neutrality and secrecy. He is not neutral. We have no idea what he's saying about politicians behind closed doors. We cannot know the will not know, but you're saying that is neutrality in the fact that it ceased.
What you are putting words into King Charles's mouth, because as you very well just said there, you don't know what is being said behind the closed doors, so you can't actually know. What you do. It may not be true that all monarchs it may not be true of all monarchies, but our monarch has long been held in apolitical presence. That gives our head of state a genuine ability to unite people in whatever is an increasingly tribal world. They respect their subjects regardless of political beliefs, and in return they are broadly respected by the people. Throughout my own life, I've been fortunate enough to encounter several members of our family, including the late Queen Elizabeth and now King Charles. I've met the Princess Royal several times. As a patron of numerous sporting bodies and as a fellow Olympian, she has done a tremendous amount of promotion of sport in this country. And then, of course, there's the old proverb, be careful what you wish for. Consider the law of unintended consequences. But if the monarchy is abolished, what is left? Obviously, there's a number of very large houses now available to be occupied, in theory for more socially useful purposes, except for the one that Prince Andrew or Harvey remain forever. Or whatever, more likely they will be acquired by foreign investors, left empty and closed off to the public, the contents sold at auction. I think this almost befell Dumfries House, a remarkable estate in my region just outside Gulhane, and which was saved for the nation some years ago by the King. The house's unique collection of furniture by Chippendale and others quite literally in trucks on its way to the auction house, and the then Prince Charles secured the funds to take ownership of the property and its functions. Today, thanks to his efforts, Dumfries House is one of the area's largest employers, offering young people in the area training in hospitality and numerous traditions and skills like stonemasonry. It also welcomes school pupils from across the country who have given the chance to plant and harvest vegetables and take a tour of the estate's farm, which is working to preserve, which is working to preserve several rare breeds of farm animals. The estate itself, including the walled garden, and open public.
You say that you'll close that down with the company.
I will come to my closing remarks at length. Perhaps I've stretched the analogy a bit far. The key point is this: we are a nation of anachronisms. Every person, every nation is defined for better or worse by their history. Those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, said Churchill, or perhaps George Santayana, depending on which search engine you use. But how do most of us learn from history? It's not by textbooks in the classrooms, by encouraging as we go about our lives in its presence. Then that's what the monarchy is, a living link to our past. Sure, it's evolved over centuries to adapt to a changing world, but at its core, it remains a unifying, non-political institution that provides a constant thread running through our history. Present at the best, worst moments as a nation, a comfort to the worn and lost, a symbol of our nation's history, its permanence is fight, and so, ladies and gentlemen, I oppose the motion before this evening. God save the
incredibly entertaining and entertaining, very much. They're not all this intense, but they are all very fun. To how you can get involved in debating is, there's many ways to get involved. First, next Tuesday we're starting our intro to debating in the Friday library that is just downstairs and along. This is a great way you can work with our internationally trained team. They go from the very basics. You don't have to have any experience. I literally gave my first speech in that book, and I was shaking, and now I'm speaking in front of all of you. It is a really good opportunity. If you want to travel the globe, like the royal family, we offer completely subsidized travel. I've been to Bulgaria for free, Harvey's been to Vietnam, all completely funded. We're going to be sending to Copenhagen and Panama this year, so it's a great time to get involved and get sent across the world. It's really good fun. The other last thing we do as well is parliamentary debating. This is where in this chamber it's a lot more like this, very powerful, very entertaining. You join 5 big political parties, everything from the Tories, the communists, anarchists, authoritarians and liberals. Each of them, you come along, you give everything from a 4-minute speech to, when you get good enough, an hour-long speech. It's 12 hours long, you don't have to stay the whole time. If you enjoyed the act, that's the other time you have it. But before, and then just our photo of our dialectic president, this is our sister society, one of the societies that founded this union, to tell them about their events that they have going on this week.
Hey guys, I'm just your president of my society. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Yeah, so as I said, this is a society. If you're interested in public speaking, we're slightly daunted by this style. We're a bit more relaxed. We've got a formal social side. We're also starting to so capital competition and things like that. Our first one question is next week. It's wine and cheese on Wednesday in the building. It's 600 entry or free if I remember. I don't know if it's £2, so it's going to decide on. And you get how to go in Thursday. Anyway, I hope to see that.
How we decide these special weeks motion is by a vote of acclamation. So what we'll do is we'll give each side a chance for the audience to cheer for them, and then very strict process. And then it's okay. So if you are for the monarchy, cheer. I'd recommend all of you to grab a pint, chat about the debate, chat about where you're from. It's a really good chance to meet people all over the world. Biggest has a bar, Beer Bar has a bar. There's also a kitty going on tonight in silent disco. Enjoy some traditional Scottish dancing. Have a good